Greetings. This is the commentary, and I'll call it a sermonette, on the song Played Out. This is a pre-Christian song, and I think I wrote this probably in 1976. I'm going to do this a little different this time. I think I want to read through the whole lyrics, and I have a reason why I need to do that. Then I'll come back and discuss the particular verses and the chorus to put some context to this. So let's just get right into the lyrics. Looking at this with an objective eye, I just don't see the reasons or the why, but this is all of these games I can take. Your words and actions make a sharp break, to make sharp the break, to make sharp the break. No reason now to stand up and shout, no reason for me to knock you out. There's one thing there's no doubt about, and that's the simple fact that we're done played out. We're done played out. I used to wonder what goes on behind those eyes. Are they filled with truth or stuffed with lies? Those are questions I don't have to ask now. Time's filled in the blank and sealed it with a pow, with a pow, with a pow. And then I go into this haunting chorus. So much is out of control. So much don't mean anymore. So much don't seem to relate. So much seems to come way too late, way too late. And then I get into about a 16 time over a way too late, way too late, way too late, way too late. And then at the end of that haunting, searching, dark desperation, I come right back with an almost out of context declaration. No one, I said no one, seems to really understand the fragileness of all life, sea and land. Blindness is man's only true sight. He pilfers and he plunders, then walks away saying, everything's gonna be all right. Everything's gonna be all right. And then I go, Now getting back to the matter at hand, looking once again with this dejected eye, I still don't see the reasons or the why, but one thing there's no doubt about, and that's the simple fact that me, myself, and I, we're done played out. We're done played out. Son, you're done played out. It isn't till the last verse that you realize, and this entire song is me looking at myself in a mirror. Now, when I first wrote this, that wasn't the intent, because I said, looking at this with an objective eye, I still won't see the reason or the why. But this is all these games I can take. Your words and actions, babe, make a sharp break, to make sharp the break. So originally, it was like this jaded love song, fabrication of my imagination. So then I go, no reason now to stand up and shout, no reason for me to knock you out, because one thing, babe, there's no doubt about, and that's the simple fact that we're done played out. So again, it was all referencing some fictional woman and this distraught, jaded lover. I used to wonder what goes on behind those eyes. Are they filled with truth or stuffed with lies? So when you're going through this, it's like I'm looking at whoever this female is. Those are questions I don't have to ask now, because time's filled in the blank and sealed it with a pow. And then I go into that haunting chorus about so much out of control. So again, it'd be like a guy that lost his love and he's all mad about it. But when I got to the last verse, I originally did have it again as this jaded lover, because I said, looking once again with this dejected eye. So this lost love. I still don't see the reasons or the why, but one thing there's no doubt about, and that's the simple fact, babe, that we're done played out. Well, I think what happened as I was working on this song, and even when I'd gotten it finished, it was like that chorus, so much is out of control, so much don't mean anymore. So much don't seem to relate, so much seems to come way too late. And I think that phrase there, as I was playing this song, it's like, this is a deeper cry from within me than some fabricated, jaded lover story. And I don't know exactly when I hit on it, but the last verse I changed, looking once again with this dejected eye. I still don't see the reasons or the why, but one thing there's no doubt about, and that's the simple fact that me, myself, and I were done played out. that's when I changed this to where the whole song is me actually looking in a mirror, and you don't know it until the very last phrase. This became one of my favorite pre-Christian songs because of the twist, but also that it really captured where I was at mentally and emotionally, etc. So to go back through it now, I'm looking at myself in the mirror, and I'm looking with an objective eye. So I'm trying to stand outside of myself and look and analyze myself. I just don't see the reasons or the why, in other words, to life and what I'm doing and what I'm about. But this is all of these games I can take. Your words and actions make a sharp break. To make sharp the break. In other words, looking at myself objectively, what you say and what you do. You want to be right, or you want things to be just, you want things to be fair, and yet you yourself violate that time after time. So your words and actions, Robin, make sharp the break. You are a hypocrite, and you don't stand for what you think everybody else should stand for, and you yourself don't do it. So now with that as an objective eye, there's no reason now to stand up and shout, no reason for me to knock you out. Because there's one thing there's no doubt about, and that's a simple fact that we're done played out. In other words, looking objectively, there's a despondency because you're not right and you're not able to make things right. Then I back up a little bit and I'm saying, okay, I used to wonder what goes on behind those eyes. Are they filled with truth? Do you find answers there, or are they stuffed with lies? Those are questions I don't have to ask now. Times filled in the blank and sealed it with a pow. Now, looking objectively, this is a very negative assessment, as I'm attacking myself in the first verse about how you're a hypocrite, and then verse 2 about no reason to stand up and shout or knock you out. It's like I'm beyond corrective action now. That's all in the past. I've tried to do that and it didn't work. I'm too broken even to attempt at fixing myself. And then as far as wondering what's going on behind those eyes, are they filled with truth or stuffed with lies? Realizing that thoughts are precursors to actions, to what you actually do. And I hoped there was truth there or answers, but with time, it was clear the answers weren't there either. Now, I said in my other video, my first pre-Christian song I recorded, that the first place I thought I'd find answers or find purpose would, of course, be the education system. That failed me. I got into a door-to-door 2-summer book selling thing based on brotherhood and aggressiveness and clean living and positive thinking, and that worked great my first year as a psychological thing. The second year, I needed more help. And I had a team that I had trained to go out and sell books. I'm using that psychological stuff on them. And then the people above me were trying to use the same things to me to get me motivated to go out there for this summer. I remember thinking, I don't know if I said it or not, but it's like, there's got to be more to this, because I need more than, I'm using these tools on these 3 guys I had on my team, but I needed more at this point. Well, then I got out on the field and they had me in an area that had been overworked. They did acknowledge without saying it that I was in an area that had been overworked because they moved me, but at the same time accused me of not working. My sales manager brushed up against me on a weekend meeting. He said, I can tell when a man ain't working. I wanted to bury him right on the spot because I was knocking on doors 82 hours a week, just like I had the year before. But the point is that positive thinking stuff had all crumbled. And that's where I turned to myself for trying to find answers or reason or purpose. And the guitar was my world because I was able to write songs, and nobody had any say in that. Nobody had any control over that. Nobody could dictate anything. And I wasn't concerned about making it pop songs or whatever it might be. It was an outlet for me to convey the messages that I was wanting to convey. I think with this song, because it started out as this fictional jaded lover story, a woe is me kind of thing, that also had fallen apart. It's like, what is that? And so when I hit on this of me looking in the mirror, then it came in focus for me. When I get into the haunting chorus, I realized that I was not the place to be able to find purpose or meaning for life. And it was like tumbling into a complete realm of despondency, so much out of control. I couldn't control myself. So much don't mean anymore. So much don't seem to relate. That's again where the education, all this stuff, nothing came together. It was just like this disjointed set of facts and information. So much seems to come way too late, way too late. Whatever it is I need, it's not coming, and I'm in this terrible place of despondency, and it's gonna come way too late because I'm destroying myself. Give you an idea. When you have New Year's, we have a New Year's resolution. My New Year's resolution before I became a Christian was this. I was only going to smoke pot or get high at nighttime, not during the day. I was doing delivery jobs. So I was going to clean myself up by only getting stoned at night. And then during the week, I was only going to drink beer, but on the weekends, I could add tequila and rum. That was me cleaning myself up. So much seems to come way too late. So getting back to this song, after that haunting phrase, I break into a completely unrelated subject matter. No one seems to really understand the fragileness of all life, sea and land. Blindness is man's only true sight. He pilfers and he plunders and he walks away saying, everything's going to be all right. Everything's going to be all right. Breaking away from this despondency was a way of me also then coming back to, well, I'm messed up, but that doesn't mean everybody else is okay. One thing that was so heavy on me was of how we're destroying this planet that we live on. What started me with that, I grew up in Kansas, and I was a kid that was always outside, and I was probably, I don't know if I was second grade or what, but we had a school trip. We went to Hutchinson, Kansas, just north of us a little ways. And somehow I got away from the group because there was this creek out back, but I got back there. And when I looked down at the mud, because it's just a little stream, it was kind of caked and had a greenish hue to it. And I looked up and I saw this pipe coming out of the back of one of these buildings. And there was this green goo coming out of it. When I saw that, it scared me because I knew it was death. And then it made me angry. From that point on, it was like this weight upon me of man destroying our planet through this pollution and this short-sightedness. To break into this verse, it's like, yeah, I'm all screwed up, but you're all screwed up too. So it's like I'm not less than you. I'm not demeaned by anybody else out here, but I got to get now back to the reality at hand. In other words, me. But it's a way of stiffening up and not overly demeaning myself that somehow I'm worthless and you people are all worthy. In fact, I even remember one time, right before I became a Christian, some point in there, I went somewhere and I started looking around at everybody and I was watching everybody because I said, is everybody like me? You're kind of here and you're looking out and am I weird? Is this abnormal or is it normal? And I realized nobody's looking at me like I'm weird, so I must be normal. It's something to try to figure this thing out. Well, 6 months prior to me becoming a Christian, this girl I was living with, and I told her, I said, I think I'd like to read the Bible. The reason I said that to her and to myself was if you'd asked me if I'd read the book Moby Dick, I'd have said no, but I've seen the movie, so I kind of know some things about it. But I knew I'd never read the book. Well, if you asked me about the Bible, yeah, I knew some things about it, but I'd never actually read it. In the 2 summers that I was selling Bibles, there were some people I knew that they knew what they had in their hand. It's this Nave's Topical Bible in particular. It's a reference Bible. I learned very quickly that I didn't have to sell that book. I would put it in their hands, and within seconds, they knew what they had in their hands, and I just would stand back and let it sell itself to them. Others didn't, and I did have to sell them that book. And some other things happened where I knew there was something a little different about some of these people that said they were Christians. So I'd made this decision just to read the Bible. Well, I decided to read the Revelation first. Why you go to the last chapter of a book and read that? Or I guess I was in a hurry to get to the end to see what it had to say. But I'm reading along, and it's a combination of stabbing me, warning me, and then something else that would want to keep reading. Like one of the first things he said, all fornicators are going to go in the lake of fire, which is the second death. And I said, what's a fornicator? So I look at my dictionary, and it says two single people having sex together. And I go, I'm living in fornication. And it scared me, and then it made me mad, because it's like, what's marriage? It's just a piece of paper, blah, blah, blah. So on one hand, it was convicting, stabbing. And then on the other hand, like I read this, all these judgments was going to happen, and about God and being the Almighty and his power that he has. And the nations were enraged, and your wrath came. And the time came for the dead to be judged, and the time to give their reward to your bondservants, the prophets, and to the saints, and to those who fear your name, the small and the great. So judgments come, and now it's time to punish, reward, and to destroy those who destroy the earth. I read that phrase. You're saying you created this place, and you're going to destroy those who have destroyed it. It was like a weight was lifted off of me. Boy, you don't have to worry about people that are polluting and destroying this planet, because they're going to answer to me. And it was like, well, what else does this book have to say? And that was a tremendous turning point for me. I was not a Christian. I didn't become a Christian for another 6 months. But it was a way to convict me, on one hand, about fornication, and then keep reading and see what else this book has to say. It's a fantastic balance that God does. And the other thing I'd add to this, nobody told me to read the Bible. I was around nobody preaching at me, nobody telling me anything. This was a decision that I made within myself. And the Bible that I started reading was one that she had stolen out of the hospital. I told her I wanted to read the Bible. She takes one from the hospital, because she's working as an LPN, licensed practical nurse. And I remember looking up and seeing it sitting on this dresser. Then I took it and started reading it. So along with this part about the pollution thing, speed up to today, 2026 now. And there's a Lieutenant General Stephen Quast that is on Badlands Media, and he's now started a podcast or a show or whatever you want to call it, and it's called Space Revolution. If you get a chance to listen, he's starting to reveal now the technological changes that are coming. The long and short of it, he said the goal is where this manufacturing is now going to be taking place in space. And he's got a company, they're developing these platforms where it's like modules and they can add to it. And with Elon Musk having these rockets that can go up and then come back down and land, it's reduced the expense of getting things up to space, the manufacturing taking place there, and then even going out from there to be able to mine asteroids and get a lot of the raw materials that are needed, and then building stuff in space and making this Earth, instead of scarring it and ripping it to pieces, making it like a garden and getting back to a genuine stewardship of the planet to protect the land, the water, the air. So if you get a chance, Lieutenant General Stephen Quast, you'll need to go to Rumble, Badlands Media, and it's called Space Revolution. But getting back to the reality at hand, looking once again with this dejected eye, I still don't see the reasons or the why. But one thing there's no doubt about, and that's the simple fact that me, myself, and I, we're done, played out. Son, you're done, played out. When I say looking with this dejected eye, I'd gotten to the point where it was hopeless, dark, unwinnable battle. Yet it was present right in front of me with no hope of future improvement. That's where I was really at. I think I want to close with this story. I have a Master of Divinity. The Master's was a 90 semester hour graduate program on top of a 4-year undergraduate. And they would have chapels, but one reason I went there is they didn't have required chapels. I'm not going to go anywhere where I'm forced to listen to anybody. I'm going to listen to who I want to listen to, and they need to earn the right, if you want to call it that, for me to listen to them. If I'll listen to them for a while and I realize that they're full of it, I'll seek out other voices as far as who I want to be associated with and where I want to receive information. It's always a mixed bag, but when I was graduating, they would give a chapel service to anyone that was a graduate, where they come and lead the chapel service. So I thought, you know what, I think I'll do that. I had not gone to one chapel service the whole time I was there. What I did, I didn't know if I was going to pull it off. I started weaving the story of an unsaved young man. And I went through all of this searching he was going through and the degradation he'd gotten into. And I didn't spare any of the details. Living with a woman, the drug and effort to try to clean himself up. And as I was telling this, I would then read lyrics from some of the songs. I say he also wrote songs, and I'd read some of the lyrics. So one was Dead End, which is the one I did just before this. And then this was the one I was closing with, was Played Out. So I went through these lyrics. I had painted this picture of this young man in this descending life. And I read this, looking once again with this dejected eye. I still don't see the reasons or the why. But one thing there's no doubt about, and that's the simple fact that me, myself, and I were done played out. We're done played out. And then I said, that young man was me. April 17, 1977, I asked the Lord to come into my life. You could hear a pin drop. And I said, the reason I'm telling you this is when you're out there in your varied ministries, wherever God has you, and you run across a young person that's in the kind of condition that I described to you, you never know if that same individual might be turned around and one day be graduating with a Master of Divinity and speaking in a chapel to an audience like this. And then I had my guitar, and I did the song, which I'm going to have in a playlist here, To Carry Your Name. And when that was over, there was one woman that came up, said she'd been going to these chapels all these years, and she said, this is the first time I ever felt the Holy Spirit. I mean, it just kerwham, I was able to pull it off. There was only one individual that came up to me and he said, when you got to this last song, Played Out, I elbowed the person next to me and I said, he's talking about himself. He figured it out right before I dropped that bomb. So the Lord has given me some very unique opportunities to do some things. But the reason that I wanted to record some of my pre-Christian songs is just to give an idea mentally, emotionally, etc., where I was at. And if you can relate to that, any of this, then it also is going to show you where I found the answers to these questions. Because now there's many things I don't understand, but I'm not looking with a dejected eye. I see many reasons and why. I don't say I like all of them, of why we're in this age, what has happened here, God's involvement in it, and his purposes. I've written a lot on this. If you go to my website, you can look at, they're mainly topical articles and ebooks I've written. And if you'll go through those, you're going to find some title that's going to go, what might that be about? You're going to find some unique information in the way I've approached a lot of things. One thing there's no doubt about is the simple fact that me, myself, and I were done played out. That's the exact kind of person God is looking for. He brings us down and we all start out the same. It doesn't matter what culture we're in. It doesn't matter what our gender is. It doesn't matter what age and history that we're born in. All come down to the same level before him, and that we're all morally accountable creatures made in his image, and all of us have violated to varying degrees these crowns that he's given us, where he's made us like him. He plans things out. Well, we can plan things out, but we've defiled that because we plan a lot of evil things out. He communicates. We can communicate. We've defiled that because we use this communicative ability to lie and deceive and other things, and these are crowns that he's given to us, and that's what brings the anger of God. He's creative. Well, he's given us the ability to be creative. Well, we've invented torture machines and all kinds of other things. We create all kinds of evil. This is why God is angry, and he calls it sin when we violate these abilities we've been given and don't use them the correct way. And he says there's no one who continually does good and never sins. And we've all sinned, fallen short of the glory of God, or the honor that God has given us, that we're made in his image and have these abilities. We've defiled those things. That's where the anger of God comes in, and that's where the accountability to him also comes in, that he has the right to demand justice on these matters. And that's where Jesus enters the picture, because he's the way out. I don't want to get into a lot more on that right now, because you can watch my other stuff and learn. Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father but through me. It's through Jesus Christ that he's given us an exit plan for this guilt that we have, that can be remedied. That's who Jesus is, and that's what he's done for us. None of us, by our own merit, can get right with him and can fix the mess that we've made. And that's why he brings everybody down to the same level. So he talks about us being born again, where he gives us a complete clean slate and a fresh start. The entry is the same way, and no one has a leg up on anybody. That's one reason I'm convinced that this material is from God. I have dug into this for, 48 years, and it's as phenomenal today, and it's overwhelming today in its depth and its beauty as it was when I first started looking into this. But we have this sin covering over us, and when we call on the Lord and turn to him, that is peeled away, and now through Christ, now we have God who is infinite, where we can go as deep as we want to go. There's no limit to this because it's inexhaustible. So the foundations are very simple, very clean, and very clear, and it's the same for everybody. But we can go as far as we want to go in seeking him and learning and growing. And I'm just going to say, and I'll close with this, I thank you for listening, but if you listen to him, you're going to learn great and mighty things that you do not know. And those materials lead only to life, and you will indeed, if you listen, live.